and welcome back to the show. This is Penny Sansevieri and Amy Cornell. Sorry, Amy. I totally hacked your last name.
It's okay, but you got the show name right. So
as long as I get the show name right? The Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. It took me, for those of you who've been listening for a while, and y'all know it took me forever to get the show name right because it's tricky.
It's a tongue twister.
It's a tongue twister. So first off, thank you all so much for listening. We're so grateful to our listeners. Show ideas, send them our way. We love reviews. I know I remind people several times during every podcast. I'm actually shamefully aware of that, but we love reviews. So wherever you listen to podcasts, please leave us a review. So this is, a lot of our shows are born out of ideas that we get from authors who come to us with questions or with, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. And so this is another show that is born out of that because we get a lot of authors coming to us because they published their book and did nothing with it. And I cannot tell you how many times that I have an author and I'll say to them, when was your book published? Well, it was published 5 years ago, just as an example. And it's been up on Amazon for 5 years, but I haven't done anything with it. So it doesn't really count. And here's the problem is that it all counts. And a lot of times authors come to us assuming that we can help them make up for lost time. So whether your book has been up for 5 years and you have done nothing with it, or even a year, we can definitely help you catch up in some areas, but there are things that are beyond our control. And I think the number one of the 5 reasons, I'll just start with number one. The biggest reason that you don't want to put your book up on Amazon until you're ready to do something with it is because the Amazon system will think that nobody cares about your book. And what happens, and this is the conversation that I preach to authors who put their book up for pre-order, and putting their book up for pre-order is obviously different than putting it up for your on sale date, to be clear, but the same algorithms impact your pre-order as well as impact the book that you put up on Amazon. And by that, I mean that if you put your book up on Amazon, whether it's your on sale date or your pre-order date, and nothing happens with it, the algorithms say, nobody wants this book. Nobody wants this book. And it's hard to recover from that, meaning that your sales rank, your book will continue to sink down the Amazon into the black hole that is the basement of Amazon, I guess. And it's hard to recover from that. It's really hard to resurrect a book once it's sunk down that far.
Oh, that was dark. I
know.
I love it.
Like the Amazon basement, and
I know that was terrifying.
Sometimes that got a little weird. Can you rescue this show, Amy? Because I don't know.
No, I thought it was perfect though, because this is a big problem, yet it's got such a simple solution. It's exciting to publish a book, but don't do it until you're ready to promote it. But number 2 reason, a book aging without reviews definitely gives potential buyers pause. When authors reach out to us with an older title that has very few or sometimes even zero reviews, I'm typically the one that, engages with them first. And I ask them what they've been doing to promote the book. And that's usually how I typically find out that, to Penny's point, that I've pretty much done nothing, or something happened in my life, or there's so many reasons, and we get it. Life goes on even after you publish a book, but it is important because readers like what other people like. So letting a book age without a reasonable number of reviews getting added with the passage of time essentially tells potential buyers that people just aren't interested. So even if they were buying the book, they didn't like it enough to bother posting a review. And there's no magic number for this, meaning like if your book is X years old, you should have this number of reviews. It's not quite that precise. But the general idea is like, put your buyer's shoes on instead of your author's shoes. Like if you see a book that's been out for a couple years and only a couple people have bothered to review it, that doesn't look good, right? It's not a good look. So that's another problem with putting your book up on Amazon and kind of ignoring it or not promoting it at all, is that you're obviously not actively going to be getting reviews if nobody knows it exists. And the older a book gets with fewer reviews, that it definitely just reflects poorly on your book overall.
Yeah, it is really hard as books age. It's much harder to get it's much harder to get reviews for them, and it's much harder to pitch them to bloggers because there are so many new books that get published every day. So reason number 5 is you're probably not refining your description and your subtitle. If you're not focused on promotion, then you're not focused on putting the best product possible out there. And your description and subtitle are a huge part of that. So I think, this goes back to the conversation that we always have about your Amazon book page and how incredibly important your Amazon book page is. And your description and your subtitle are obviously a tremendous part of that. So if you're not ready to refine that, you're really not ready to put your book up on Amazon for sale.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Penny. We've touched on that before in other episodes too, that the description sometimes can be a forgotten part, which just seems like it makes me want to fall out of my chair,
Right.
Oh, what I came up with the night I put it up on Amazon is not good enough. It's like, no, that's definitely not enough time.
Yeah.
And similarly, and this carries on to your point that, the importance of refining your product and putting the best possible version of your book out there. If you're not actively promoting, you're not actively thinking about doing that. And so you're probably not also researching the appropriate categories and keywords for your book. Keywords are important for pulling in the right people, and effective keywords ensure you're showing up in more searches with those people. And categories, equally important, because strategic categories can help you on your way to your bestseller list that you're looking for. And I always argue that each sale has that much more impact when you're in a lucrative category. So maybe you're only selling a handful of books a month, but if you're in a really smart category for your topic, that could still give you a pretty impressive bestseller, rank, a seller rank, versus being in a really broad category. And again, if you're not ready to promote your book, these kind of things, your keywords, your categories, your description, your subtitle, all these things that make your book better, they're not going to be top of mind, and you're probably not focused on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you really have to. I think the core message of this particular show is you really have to be ready. And we understand that things come up, right? So I've had authors that I've talked to who have said, they've had a family member die or something, and then they got completely sidelined. Things come up, but generally speaking, that's not the case. Sometimes you put the book up and you forget about it, which I find hard to believe, but it does happen. So number 5, you're not pitching influencers during your new release window. And by influencers, I mean bloggers, online media, bookstagrammers, things like that. Don't wait on that core piece of marketing, because if you want to get people talking about the book, and why wouldn't you? Part of that is pitching bloggers and pitching, or influencers, as we use sort of on that kind of umbrella term. And the farther out from release day that you get, the harder it is to get these influencers interested in you, because books, there's an old saying in the industry that books have the shelf life of milk. I don't know that that's necessarily so accurate, but they certainly do have a narrow window of opportunity to get. When Amy and I get, when an author comes to us and it's a book that we really would love to work with, but it's older, and by older, I mean, 9 months, maybe a year, maybe longer, we really struggle to figure out where we're going to pitch this book, because so many of these bloggers are so focused on new release titles, which I can completely understand. Amy, anything else that you want to add to the show before we wrap up?
No, I think that pretty much covered. I mean, obviously we could go on and on with why it's not a great idea to publish your book if you're not going to do anything with it. But I think these 5 pieces are definitely elements that everybody listening can certainly wrap their heads around and sit there and go, okay, yes, like that makes sense. Like there's really not a lot of argument to these ones. So that being said, I think that if your book has been out there, come talk to us about it. We've got some clever ways that you can deal with that. There's always options. But it is about being strategic and being smart. And, be prepared to maybe pivot a little bit. What we tell you need to do may not be what you're expecting, but if you really want to do something with this book and not entirely give up on it, then keep an open mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again so much for tuning in. This is Penny Sandsbury and Amy Cornell, and this is the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. As ever, we love to hear from you, and please do leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.